Uh, with me here, I've got Dr. Josh Mcginty. He's our extension agronomist for District 11, covering, all of the South Texas up to the coastal bends. So appreciate you kind of visiting with us, Dr. Mcginty. And if you could, would like you to kind of comment on maybe some of the things that we need to consider as we manage the late portion of our cotton crop.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have two main things to deal with. The most immediate need is going to be on the plant growth regulator side of things. We've got enough soil moisture now and plenty of heat, and these plants are going to try to get out from under us fairly quickly. Hopefully, most of everybody in the area was able to get a little bit of picks out before this major rainfall. I know here on the station we managed to get 8 ounces to a pine out on various trials about 2 weeks ago, in between a couple of those weekend rainfalls. And that's really important. That cotton was just starting to bloom. That's a good time to go ahead and get some Epiquat into the system of that plant to start to rein it in, especially after those 3/4 to an inch rains that we got a few weeks ago. And then that kind of sets you up for any additional rainfall that you get. And that's kind of the situation we're in right now. So if you're able to get some picks out before all this, you're probably in good shape. We can wait till some of these fields dry down a little bit. You don't want to put any additional picks on while these plants are under stress. So in these flooded fields, even though we might have the ability to get an airplane out there and spray them, you might want to wait until that water drops a little bit and those plants come out of that stress. We don't like putting picks on stressed plants. But then once the field's dry a little bit, we could still get out there, hit it with a second shot, maybe a pint rate at this point, and we're probably good for the season, because that sets us up for the point where the boll load on the plant should rein in that growth. The best and cheapest plant growth regulator is a good load of bolls on the plant. And so we're just trying to hold that plant back a little bit until they get that load on them to start diverting some of that energy away from new growth. Now, if you weren't able to get any picks out before this rain or in between the last couple of rains we've had, then we might need to come at those plants a little more strongly. First thing you need to do is know the variety that you planted, talk to your seed rep, find out how much PGR management that variety requires. So, if I've got something like a 1646 that we know can be fairly aggressive, and I don't have any picks in that plant yet, and we've got this massive amount of soil moisture, and we're going to have a lot of heat starting this week, going through next week, I wouldn't be afraid to hit that with a fairly stiff shot of PGR when I get the chance. But make sure you're having that conversation with your seed rep, because you don't want to put a 24-ounce rate on a variety that just doesn't respond very well to picks. It doesn't need it. So know what you have planted. Again, hopefully folks were able to get at least a light shot out there before all this when the plant started to bloom a couple weeks ago. If not, and you have a variety that's aggressive, don't be afraid to hit it with a heavy rate. We don't want to let these plants get out of control and start to get 4 or 5 foot tall on us before they get that boll load to slow them down. So that's where I'm at right now. Still thinking about that tropical weather in the south of the Gulf. That could cause us some problems if it heads this way, but we'll have to deal with that when it gets here. So manage your PGRs appropriately in the meantime. The other thing we're going to have to deal with is going to be maybe a late weed flush. I know a lot of folks early on didn't put a pre-emerge out, and it was so dry at that point. I wouldn't blame you if you did skip that. We just weren't receiving enough rainfall to flush the weeds or activate a herbicide. But now that we've gotten a little further into the season, we've had a couple of significant rains at this point, followed by this last one that's excessive. We're going to have a big weed flush. You probably didn't have any pre-emerge out, or if you did, it's long since dissipated. And some of these fields have enough canopy on them that weeds won't be able to come up in the middles, but a lot of them don't. And a lot of the stuff I'm looking at on the station today, is in that boat. We still have some sunlight reaching the middles, and we don't have any residual herbicides out there at this point. So we're going to have a late flush. Just be ready for it. If you've heard me talk at all at this point, I'm going to say small weeds are a lot easier to kill. So be ready to pull the trigger early. And if it's an option for you, I would think about maybe putting a residual in the tank with your post-emerge herbicide, especially since we have that threat of some additional rainfall if the tropical weather moves up this way and hits this part of the coast. So let's go ahead and take care of this next flush of weeds, maybe put another residual down that'll protect us against an even later flush if we get some significant rainfall in the next week to 10 days. A lot of that's going to be dictated by how soon we can get back into the field. We're not going to be putting Liberty out with an airplane. You're kind of limited to Roundup at that point. A lot of our weeds are resistant to Roundup. So, for my nursery plots, we're kind of waiting on the point where we can get a tractor or a self-propelled sprayer into the field, which is going to be probably sometime next week at the rate we're going. So get ready, be ready to pull the trigger as soon as you can get back into the field. Take care of those weeds when they're small. Think about putting a residual in to prepare us for that next rain. So that's what I'm thinking about, Jason. A lot of that's going to possibly change depending on the weather that we get from the Gulf, and I think we're all watching that at this point.